lab, but
Oh,
yeah. So he's a biggin.
yeah. Yeah.
So welcome back to another episode of Boss and Cage. This is the book club edition. So we have none other than the copyright boss himself back on the Boss and Cage podcast for a second time. And today we're going to be more so diving into his books, more recently, his more recent book. We're going to talk about some of his older books as well. So the floor is yours. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit, refresh their memory a little bit, and then tell them a little bit about your book.
Okay. Well, I hope we don't talk too much about the old books, only because I don't remember them that well. Yeah, I'm sure you'll refresh my memory. Um, I'm Donnie Bryant, as SA told you. I'm a direct response copywriter and marketing consultant. I live in Chicago, and I've been doing this for 17 years now, working with lots of clients, but mostly in the financial space, and making lots of folk lots of money. And I'm also trying to share my understanding, share insights and tips with people to help
Mm,
them improve their copy and their marketing to be more effective, so they can make more money as well. That's
mm.
me.
Very cool, very cool. So, I mean, starting it off, I think before we got on air, I was telling him congratulations for his recent anniversary of being married for 22 years, which is a hell of an accomplishment. And the irony of that is opening up the book, he tells a story about being married to his wife and what it was like, having dinner with not knowing these inside jokes. So I want to kind of like talk about because it was a hell of a precedent to set that storyline like that and then
Appreciate that.
lead into the topic. So I want you to kind of talk about the concept of that and what does that mean to you?
Sure. Well, one thing that we all know, if we're in business or even if we're not, trying to get attention online and sustain attention is is a really big task.
Mm,
It can be very hard to do, and sometimes it feels like no one hears you.
mm,
And for me, in the book, I opened it up because that analogy, uh, or what is an analogy to that, is the way that my my first maybe 2 years or
mm,
so becoming a part of my wife's family. She's very close to her family, and everyone an outspoken, big personality, and they have all these stories. So shy Donnie comes in, and I'm trying to get in these conversations, and
mm,
I don't know how to get in. And then if I get anyone's attention for just for even for a moment, I don't know how to keep it. And so so for me, like I said, that's an analogy to kind of how we might feel and how our experience often is online, trying to get attention of the people we want to influence and the people we want to
mm,
work with. Sometimes it's hard to get their attention. And then even if you do get it, how do you keep it?
mm,
So my book is called Subject Line Science. It's all about that first step of how do you get attention. So we talk about different ways that you can approach that attention in your email inbox. Although a lot of people have been telling me subject line science applies outside of email as well. They're using
mm,
the concepts for YouTube video hooks and social media hooks as well. So anyway, the idea is how do you get attention from people who don't necessarily, they're not committed to paying attention to you.
mm,
They're having their own experience. They're having their own conversations. They're dealing with their own stuff. So how do you break in? That's uh, what's what the book's about. And I again, in the family situation, it just took me a while to
mm,
know how to get their attention, what kind of stories we're gonna work, what kind of jokes we're gonna land well, and just how to get individual attention, well, attention from individuals that I wanted attention from. So it was a process for me. And then you do the same thing online. How do we figure out how to get attention and keep it online?
mm. So I think that that's an interesting dichotomy in the sense that okay, we're talking about getting attention for ourselves, which I thought was really ironic. That going into chapter two, the foundation, you're saying that they really don't care about us. So, so it's kind of like this push and pull. So the book automatically kind of just pulls you in, and it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, you just said, now you're saying. So I want you to kind of talk about. I think the real subchapter of that was pains and problems, fears and frustrations, and dreams
Dreams
and
and
desire.
desires. Yeah.
So I want you to talk about that.
Yeah. We need attention to do our business
Mm,
or our message, whatever we want to share with the world. We need attention in order to do that. But the first thing we had to realize is, again, people are dealing with their own stuff. And so I went with the Michael Jackson thing. Maybe not, no one thought about that. they don't really care about us, which is one of Michael Jackson's best songs.
Yeah.
um, but it's true, especially online. They're online looking for their own interests, or they're looking for Dave Chappelle clips or whatever they're trying to do. I know. Every time I see Dave's face, I gotta watch the clip see what
Yeah.
he said.
100%.
Right, it's exactly. So, so they're not saying, wonder what Donnie Bryant is saying today. Most of them are not, and I shouldn't expect that. Otherwise, I'm setting myself up to fail. So, understanding that they don't really care about us, they really care about they're self-interested. They have a leaky roof they got to fix, or they have a 22nd anniversary to celebrate and they don't want to let their wife down,
Mhm.
or they got dogs, got to keep dogs in the background from
Mhm.
leaking audio or getting sound in the audio. And so they're looking for solutions to their own problems, or they're looking for entertainment. So I broke it down like that. Like you said, pains and problems. They're online looking to solve their pains and problems, or they're looking to uh, ease their fears and frustrations, or they're chasing their dreams and fulfilling
Mhm.
their desires. And so the way we get attention is by appealing to those things. If you have a painkiller, then you can get their attention. You got a headache, I got Tylenol, I can help you. Or if you got frustration over, my kids won't listen. They never listen to me. They misbehave. Okay, if I can help you with that, then you get attention. So it's not about you, it's about their own situations.
Mhm.
So that's how you get their attention, not by saying, "Hey, I'm a cool guy." That fails, unless you're Kim Kardashian, I suppose.
Mhm.
She's probably failing more more these days.
Yeah.
Kanye's coming back, right? People care about Kanye because he's Kanye. People care about Beyonce because she's Beyonce. People care
Mhm.
about Donald Trump because he's Donald Trump. That's either good or bad. Those people can get attention by their mere presence.
Hmm.
You and I, a little bit less so. So we got to get in where we fit in, which is in those dreams and desires of our audience, or their fears and frustrations, or their pains
Mhm.
and their problems.
So I think like I love the way this book is situated, right? So I mean, obviously the next subchapter is talking more about integrity, but again, based upon what you're saying with dreams and desires and the statement of fake it till you make it,
Yeah.
this chapter kind of contradicts that to a certain extent. So I want to kind of talk about like the opposite of the integrity. Like, some people may be a little bit dishonest with their content, but you're
Yes.
saying not to lie about the content. So like,
Right.
let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, we've all seen this, the clickbaity sort of headlines that say, you've seen it, like it'll have a picture of your toe and there's an arrow pointing to the cuticle there. It
Mm,
says if it's signs of a heart attack. And you'll be like, oh no,
mm,
I got toes and I have cuticles and I wonder if
yeah.
that means I'm gonna have a heart attack. And you click through and it's not even about heart attack. They're not showing anything. They're just using in dishonest tactics to get your attention. And so that
Mm,
sort of thing, I don't think, I mean, people do it because it does work to some extent. But over the long term, what we want to do is present ourselves as the kind of people who provide value,
mm,
specific value. Like I'm not just talking about making money or whatever. Like I'm talking about how to improve your messaging, and as an entrepreneur or an online marketer, improve your messaging and improve your marketing so you can make more money and you can live a higher quality of life. It's a specific value, and I want to continually put that out. But I want people to know me as that. So I can't
mm,
I can't just do anything to get attention. You have to you want to attract the right people, and you do that really by being true to who you are, and then putting a message out that's congruent with that. And I think a lot of people forget, or they think I had any attention by any means, and it works to some extent, right? Dancing on TikTok and these things. But if I dance on TikTok, first of all, I'll be embarrassed, and my family will be embarrassed for me. And then you come over and say, "Oh, this isn't about dancing. Donnie's not even that interesting." So I will have brought you in for the wrong reason. And then all of my efforts to keep your attention later and to convert you into a client later, there it's a lower likelihood of that happening because I brought you in for the wrong reason.
mm,
So it's all about really being forthcoming with who you are and what you're about and what you're going to do for people. And then you're going to bring in the right people for the right reasons, and everything works better that way. And
mm,
I've worked with clients who we're spending tons of money, tens of thousands of dollars for that in that same mindset of
mm,
uh, by any means, any means necessary. Okay, but when they come in and they don't convert, don't be mad at me when they don't convert. I had this conversation My phone guys will convert anybody. It's not true.
mm,
It's just not true. And you're wasting their time putting them on the phone with people who are not in the right mind space to
mm,
buy, or they're not even really interested in the thing that you're selling. They're interested in the thing that you seem to be selling in the ad. So it's better for us. And then the book is about email. It's better for us to
mm,
just to be honest, get the right people in, have the right relationship, and then we can really operate in our own brilliance without having to do other things and serve the people we're here to serve.
mm,
And it just works out better that way, especially in email, because it's a relationship. Email is really about relationships.
mm, mm. I mean, I think that's a hell of a way to answer that question, finishing on that key word of relationships, right? And it kind of goes into the foundation number three, which is a sub chapter of the main foundation. And the title of that one is Who Not What. And I really, when I read that chapter, I really thought about personal branding, like the equity of giving quality and knowing that when that email comes in the box, that's when you come the main point where the person wants to open that email
Right.
because of your credibility. So I want you to talk about that. I really think it stems from like self branding, but what's your viewpoint on that?
I think you're exactly right. That's why I'm wearing the purple, the boss
Yes.
color, because when you think of the boss, you see purple. I do. I think
Mm,
everyone does because you've done a great job of letting us know how you visually represent yourself.
mm,
We know what kind of content we're going to get, even though you have all kinds of different guests talking about all kinds
mm,
of different things. But I know I'm going to get quality. I know we're going to get to the bottom of these things, and it's going to
mm,
be fun. It's going to be a fun conversation. And so it's exactly that was exactly my point. You,
mm,
each of us, has to do a good job of becoming a person, becoming known as a person of a particular brand, a particular kind
mm,
of value, a particular style. And people notice, when you follow someone online or in real life and they act different in different places, and
mm.
it turns you off. Like, who is this dude? What is
Yeah.
he really about? If you change in every situation, you probably be a good politician, but
Mm,
but I feel you're dishonest, and I can't connect deeply with somebody if I don't know who they are. And
mm,
everybody doesn't know us personally who's following us
mm,
online, but they begin to feel like it. You
mm,
have a parasocial relationship, so they feel like they know you, and that's good. We want them to feel like they know us, and if we're different people all the time, they won't know us. So we that's exactly your point is exactly right. Let's create personal brands. And the book it isn't about how to pick brand colors and
mm,
graphics and all that stuff, but just about consistency of your message so
mm,
that people know when I open this email, this is what I'm going to get. This is
mm,
the kind of content I'm going to get, the kind of value I'm going to get, the kind of message I'm going to get. You're not different people, different multiple personalities
mm,
every time I open. Or if I go to watch your podcast, I know the kind of content I'm going to get. Again, it's going to be various topics, various personality being interviewed.
mm,
We're talking about different books, but we do know a lot of things, and we know your vibe, we know your
mm,
voice, we know your passion, we know your introspection, right, and your ability
mm,
to bring introspection out of other people, and so that's what it's all about.
mm. So going into number four, which is foundation four, and by the way, I love the way like you stage your chapter names about foundation, like you're building these blocks before you even get into like the algorithm chapters, right? So I want you to kind of talk about the way in. Now, the perception of way in is that some people they can buy their way in, right? They can buy their way in through marketing and advertising. Some of the people can buy their way in, like you said earlier, with Beyonce just being like that brand.
Yeah,
So I want you to kind of talk about your definition of the way in and how email really works.
sure. Well, let me remark on this. I don't pay much attention to
Mm,
Billboard charts, but I hear Beyonce was at the top of the 100 Billboard top
mm,
songs in country music. Is she a good? I never heard the song.
mm,
It's who, it's not what.
mm,
It doesn't matter. Beyonce made an opera song. Number one. If Beyonce made scream rock, acid rock, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's shooting to the top because
mm,
people like her. They love her. They want to be down with whatever she's doing. So I think that's just a good illustration. She's able to do that. And we want to kind of do that in our own world. When you show up, you say, okay, we're talking about email copywriting. Donnie's the guy we want to talk to. That's what I want to create for myself, and I'm I'm working
mm,
on it. So that's kind of like on the last point. When I talked about the way in, I guess the main point of that chapter was uh, it's kind of going back to what we were talking about. You can bring people onto your email list for the
mm,
wrong reasons, and I see this happen a lot especially in e-commerce.
Mm,
Get 20% off by giving us your email address. People aren't necessarily giving you their email address because they care. They want to get 20% off. And even more so when you're doing like sweepstakes and things. Get a free whatever, free jacket. Oh, okay. And they just put their name on the list in
mm,
hopes that they'll win something for free. And then you'll find when you go to email them in the future, they're like, am I getting my free thing? If not, I'm disengaged. So really want to building on that personal brand and that statement of value or that presentation of value, let people know what they're going to get. And then when you bring them onto your list, say they're getting a free ebook or they're getting a exclusive video or just you're going to get updates about my upcoming event, whatever. They know what they're getting. So the way you bring them onto your list is it impacts how they interact going forward because you're
mm,
setting an expectation. Again, if you're saying how to make $1 trillion by tomorrow, and the first email doesn't tell them how to make $1 trillion, your way of bringing them in, it was false,
mm,
misleading, and then they're going to disengage really quickly. So that's really the main point of that chapter, because if we bring them in the right way,
mm,
it's like a first date, I suppose,
mm,
and even before, like when you're shooting your shot, you shouldn't, you know, want to ride in my Jaguar, and then you're setting her up to think that you're all about money.
mm.
I'm assuming I'm a man, you're a man, so we're talking, but women can do the same thing. You
Yeah.
set a wrong expectation, and then it's like, oh, they're all about money, or whatever you present, that better be what you're going to build a relationship on. Obviously, we're our best selves when we're
Mm,
shooting our shot in our first date. Um, so everything is, presented in its best light, but it
mm,
should be along the right lines. If you're presenting something that you're not going to follow through on, then the whole relationship is going to fall apart. It'll probably fall
mm,
apart really quickly. Uh, on the other hand, if you start a conversation and it's really based on respect and it's just based on intellectual dialogue and all these things, then that's what your counterpart is going to expect going forward,
mm,
and it makes sense. Your relationship can thrive because you knew what you were getting into. She knew what she was getting into, and it's the same with email. You really want, okay, I got an ebook about personal branding. Email 1 is about personal branding. Email 2 is about personal branding. Email 3 is about what you can do when you got a personal brand.
mm,
Oh, so you brought them in for the right reason, and then everything that you're going to communicate with them going forward is about the reason that they came. Because again, it's
mm,
about their problems and their pains and problems. That's what they want to solve. Their fears and frustrations, their dreams and desires. So whatever of those things you're going to address as you acquire them as email subscribers, that's what you want to fulfill on in your emails going forward.
mm. So I think based upon everything you said, that like that's a very compact onion with a lot of different layers, right?
Sure.
So going into Foundation 5, the subject line has three jobs. So I'm going to play devil's advocate right now. I would think that chapter is a version of clickbait. And hear me out.
Sure.
Because the chapters leading up to it, right? I mean, you're talking about pains and problems, being fear versus frustrations, dreams and desires. Technically, those three could be what subject lines are about.
Yeah.
Then you talking about like dishonesty and being honest and being able to deliver that brand and being consistent. Well, those are reasons that subject lines can be about as well. So,
Yeah.
and then the way in is another variation. So, like you gave all this information from this onion, and then you have this kind of playful title. So, I want you to kind of talk about that title and how did the pre-existing chapters kind of lead up to this one.
It's an interesting question because I don't know that I did that on purpose, but we're going to explore that since you asked. The reason that title exists or that
Mm,
chapter exists is because I'm obsessed with email, maybe in an unhealthy way,
mm,
and I talk about it all the time. People ask questions about it all the time, and people often say, like I saad before, you want to get attention by any means necessary, and they'll do the same. Let's get it open by any means necessary.
mm,
So you'll say something like, uh, you know, I'm getting divorced tomorrow.
mm,
They'll open it because they say, oh, SA getting divorced. What's going on?
mm,
And then your email says, I'm divorcing my accountant because he missed one of my deductions
mm,
and whatever. And then why don't I open it? I feel screwed. I feel cheated. And that's not intelligent. I mean, you can do it occasionally. You'll get forgiveness one time or two times, or if you can connect it back, like I'm getting divorced, or at least that's what I thought. But you really want to tell a story that shows why you could have got divorced, like really being again fulfilling on the expectation that you set. So anyway, that's the one job everyone focuses on. How do I get an open? And it's only one thing that you got to do. If you get them to open for the wrong reason or get them to open in the wrong frame of mind, you won't be able to deliver your message in an effective way. So I believe there's three jobs, and nobody talks about it. So I created this chapter to really explain when you're thinking about subject lines as you create them. Again, I'm obsessed. This is I don't know if anybody on earth who studies and thinks about and creates subject lines like the way that I do. They probably exist, but it's rare. You need to think about a few factors, and again, people are fixed. They're affixed to one thing. You need to think about job number one is just being seen, because in an inbox, you know how it is. Where's my phone? You see it, and you just scroll. But you had to get people's attention just visually. How do I arrest people to stop and at least pay attention? That's the first job. That's kind of a small job because it relates to the open, but it's something for you to think about. There are tactics you can use to get people to notice. Made you look words was what I call them, or power words. Like if you said divorce, someone would be like, huh? Some people, that's a word that will catch their attention. Or sex, for example. If you don't go to spam,
yeah, it
right,
sells.
right, people are going to pay attention to that. Now you got to deliver on sex, because if you just say sex and then you talk about something else, people are going to be mad. Certain words get attention. Super long subject lines can get attention. I think it's a little bit easier on desktop than mobile, because mobile, it cuts it out pretty soon and you don't know how long it is. Anyway, but a super short one also. Barack Obama's most productive email in 2012 was, hey. That was the whole subject line. Hey. When you see hey, first of all, it looks like it's coming from a friend. And it's so short. Everybody else's is this long and it's this long. Visually, it's just different, and the contrast grabs your attention. So that's something that we need to think about. By the way, if you're using ChatGPT, it will never tell you to use hey. It doesn't know. So we do have to have some humanness, even if we're using AI, to know some of these things. That's why I think the things that we're talking about right now are important. So you want to be visually arresting if you can be, or try as much as you can to be visually arresting. That also includes front loading your important words. If you're going to use sex, say, don't put it after 40 characters. People may not see it. You want to put it near the front. So you got to think about those things. And the third job, okay, so the second job is getting opens. So it's really, you get opens by showing someone or indicating to someone what's going to be inside. You get them curious, or you say there's value here that I need to see. You're answering a question that I have, or this is a trending topic. I'm all about what's happening right now. I need to know everything about this. When Cat Williams' podcast came out, you say Cat Williams, and everybody's reading it, watching it.
Yeah,
all you have to do is say what you missed on the Cat Williams podcast, and they're watching. So knowing that's how you get an open. And the third job, which nobody talks about, almost nobody even realizes, is how you construct a subject line impacts the frame of mind of the person as they read the body of the email. And it doesn't seem real. It doesn't seem possible, but it's true. I've seen so much data. It impacts what happens after they click a link in the email. So if you have an email sending someone to a sales page, you're going to get different conversion rate on the sales page. If the only thing that you change is the subject line, the email is the same, the sales page is the same, but just a different subject line, you'll still get different conversion rates on the sales page, which is shocking. but it really goes to show how you bring people onto your list impacts how they interact going forward, and how you bring people into the email impacts how they interact going forward as well. So those are the three jobs. I think how it connects to the previous stuff, I think it's just building layer on layer. If you think about this, the foundational pieces, I want you to realize it's not about you. It's not about trickery. We want to be real. We want to set a proper expectation. Now you need to think about how that plays out in an individual subject line. There are three things you need to consider, and Dishonesty will impact conversion. Even if it's playful, it's funny, it's cool. I got to get opens, uh, but you're gonna find dishonesty destroys conversion rates in the long term.
Mm,
So I think again, I never really thought about the connection of that level or that chapter to the preceding ones. But I think I'm just again building layer
mm,
on layer. As you realize each of these things, you're going to be able to go. And if you don't read anything else, even if you read one chapter at a time, you're a little bit more educated, a little bit more
mm.
able to create subject lines that are going to get opens, but also create conversions on the end. That's the goal anyway.
Hmm, hmm. I think it's definitely interesting. I think one thing that you said that I held on into my memory to bring up right now was the use of made you look and power words, which I thought was definitely interesting. That obviously going into the second chapters, it's all about that. And then you have appendix number two, which is kind of like the closing part of the book. But that's when you kind of give like the list of the power words, like the words that help with conversion. So first, I want to ask you like how did appendix 2 come to be so far down the food chain, considering it could have been a foundation chapter?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll tell you something else. I'll tell you a couple interesting things here.
Mm,
Number one, the appendix wasn't a part of the original version of the book. This is
mm,
actually the third version of the book, which all of this happened in 4 weeks.
mm,
Version one, version two, version three. I said, I need to add more. I need to answer these questions that people are having because nobody said to me, I wish I knew some of these made you look words. But here's what happened. I wrote the book and I said, I'm going to do an audio version of this, which is
mm.
only available to people who pre-order. I might make it available sooner or later, but uh, making an audiobook is hard, by the way. It is hard. Uh, anyway, but I put together the book in about 3 weeks from beginning to end. I've actually had the idea for this book for like 3 years. And one of my friends challenged me to write it. I said I
Mm.
could do it in 2 weeks. I prove it. It took me 3 weeks, but I wrote the first version of it. And then when I was going through to read it for the audiobook, I said, there's more that we can do here. And so I don't know. I don't think I added the appendix on the first one, but it began the process of thinking, how can I really make this book complete in a
Mm,
way that when someone buys it, they're gonna have everything that they want or everything that they hope they're gonna get from it. I don't want to just write a book to write it. I
mm.
want to write a book to really fulfill a need. So the appendix got added at the end because that's what is the easy place to put it.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I want you to understand, you know how people do. They want the quick answers, and that's fine. I mean, there's value in that. Like, I know how to write emails. I just want to see the words. And people told me they did that. That's fine. But I want you to really understand the principles, and then you get the tactical stuff, which is the words.
Mm,
At least I'm situating it that way so that hopefully you'll work your way through the book, gain a deeper understanding of how uh, email, how subject lines work. This book isn't even that much about email marketing. It's just about subject lines. I want you to understand how subject lines work, how to make different kinds of subject lines, and then strategically on a foundational level, and then you
mm,
get to the tactical stuff, which is the words. So that's why it's at the end. Let me say the other thing that I don't know if I've told too many people this. I used to spend a lot of time going to offices downtown Chicago, and I was this must have been about 2016, something like that. And there's just somebody, graffiti artists. I love graffiti. I don't own any walls. I probably wouldn't want graffiti on my walls unless I commissioned it. But somebody just had one of the little stickers and it said, made you look. And
mm,
it caught my attention. It did make me look. And for whatever reason, that became something in my mind. And I have there's a Facebook group called Email Copywriting Corner, which my friend started and I kind of administer. And I used to do made you look subject lines, and I just hoped that other people would share their subject lines.
mm.
It's been an ongoing process for years. And so that just became my thing. Made you look is kind of my thing. I didn't create it originally. I stole it from a graffiti sticker. But that's what I've appropriated for my own
Mm.
uses. So yeah, so the power words are tucked at the end because again, primarily because it was just an add-on to the first and the second
Mm.
version of the book. But also I could have found a way to force them up or just stuck them up in between chapters. But I really want readers to get to understand subject lines, the foundational, fundamental,
Mm.
important, strategic things about it. You can always get the words, but your words are going to be different than my words. We got different audiences. We got different offers. And so I think I gave 50 words, something like that. There's probably a trillion words. Words. It just
Mm.
depends on your audience and what you're trying to accomplish. So those are just some examples. But if you understand how this works, you'll be able to. I mean, finding the words is easy.
So just talking about like the power words, and obviously I think headline generators are based upon algorithms
Yeah.
and they kind of make combinations. So like what is a general formula from your viewpoint? Is like, do you lead in with like a question based, or are you leading in more so with like a punchline, and which one has been a higher conversion for
That's one of the beautiful things about uh, email marketing.
you?
There's infinite number of variations on this. I've seen questions that work great, and I know many marketers who primarily use questions. My argument in the book is, and from my experience, you really want to vary the kind of subject lines that you use. You don't want to be predictable, because
Mm,
one of the worst things in anything on marketing is for someone to feel like they've seen it before,
mm,
feel like you're going to say the same thing that you always say. And if they even suspect I've read this before, they'll skip it, because we're all looking
mm,
for, how do I get all these messages out of my inbox? Swipe, 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 just throw them in the trash. So you want to have different appeal that over time,
mm,
especially as you email more often. If you have different sorts of subject lines, people have to process it. Well, they can ignore it, but I mean, if they look at it, they see it. Now you process. Have I seen this before? Is this interesting to me? Does this is it relevant to me right now? And that's going to come. I mean, a big part of that is just giving them different looks. You
mm,
want to bring them different subject lines, and even if you write the same email in different, you test different subject lines, you'll find different results.
mm,
But you want to have differing subject lines to make sure people are paying attention. So I use all kinds of different subject lines. And the after we get past the foundational stuff, there's 11 different kind of approaches,
mm,
which can take different formats.
mm.
So I like punchlines, but I also like saying just weird things. I don't know if I told you this one
Yeah.
before, and I don't think it's in the book, and it's not really safe to say it, but I'm gonna say it. One of my favorite subject lines. Well, I got a bunch of them that I really like, but uh, it was dot dot dot, and they left the cocaine.
Yes.
What? Yeah, you got to
Yes.
know. You can't. I mean, it's not a format. I mean, it's
Mm,
in the way that I think about it is a story, because there's got to be a story behind that.
mm,
That's a story-based subject line, which is one of the 11 made you look types.
mm,
But that's not necessarily a formatting thing. That's a what is going on here? Especially
mm.
from I wrote it. Why is Donnie talking about cocaine? Like,
Yeah.
Donnie doesn't seem like a drug dealer, a drug user,
Mm,
and I'm not. But anyway, I love to throw weird things at you
mm,
that make you really, I mean, make you look, but also make you wonder.
mm,
I love curiosity. So, and curiosity is really one of the most powerful motivators for opening an email.
mm.
You can always say 4 ways to make more money with your podcast. People are gonna read that. They want to know.
Yeah.
But on the but if you said, well, give you another example, 'cause I can't off the top of my head think of a way to play with that. This one is in the book. I wrote an email and split tested subject lines. One was the anatomy of an irresistible offer, because I'm writing to marketing and marketing crowd.
Mm,
Irresistible offers, but we all want. We want to create an offer that will sell, and people will say yes to more than they'll say no to. I split tested it against a tour of the mansion, and a tour of the mansion tripled, almost tripled, well,
mm,
more than doubled anyway, the open rate of a straightforward, benefit based subject line. Why? Because people want to see the mansion. It was kind of implied it was my mansion. I don't own a mansion, by the way. But and really in the email where I was talking about when Will Smith and they put the house, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air house on Airbnb,
mm, mm,
because when you saw that, I wanted it bad. I don't care when, I don't care how much. Let me in that house. The memories that are gonna come, all this. So I was really talking about that. You get a tour of the mansion because Will's going to walk you around the house and show you in the video. But also, the email that I wrote was talking about how to do this for yourself, how to create an irresistible offer. That's as irresistible, maybe not as irresistible, but as close as you can get to offering an opportunity to stay in Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv's house. Right?
Yeah.
That's irresistible. But the curiosity factor, a tour of the mansion, it just outperformed. I wasn't selling anything, so I can't say which one converted better. But the open rate was vastly different. And so to answer your question, I don't have like a single go-to. I like to do different things, and it's all about testing because everyone's audience is a little bit different. So it's worth trying different things, but you should use, I think, benefits sometimes. I think you should use fear sometimes, right? Because there's things to legitimately be scared of. If you're talking to your audience, like 4 reasons listeners, quit before 2 minutes, whatever. Like people are worried, especially if they're looking at their analytics. People are kind of dropping off at that point. Why? So they're worried about that. I mean, they want to know, how do you prevent that from happening? So if you can appeal to fear, now we're not trying to scare people. We're just appealing to something that they're already maybe a little bit nervous about. I saw another one. I didn't write this. It was like something like 4 signs your wife hates you, secretly hates you. She has been acting funny lately, man. You're right. I guess I need to know. It wouldn't matter if it's like your principal hates you. Guess what? I don't care about my school principal hating me. But your wife hating you, you should worry about that. Or if health issues, as people are getting into health lists, you appeal to fear sometimes. You don't want to have a heart attack. You don't want to have cancer. You don't want to die earlier than you need to. So you can appeal to those things. And I think that anybody every industry has areas where people have some legitimate fears. You can use them in a subject line because fear is one of the things that we can't help but pay attention either. We had to protect ourselves. And so fear is an effective way of getting attention too. But I disconnected my microphone.
There you
go. Okay. You don't always want to do fear because, again, you're now burning people out. And anyway, so curiosity is important. Fear is important. I mean, useful. Benefits, stories like the cocaine one. If you can kind of tease that there's a story inside. I also like putting quotes around things, which makes it seem like somebody said something. So now you need the context, which comes in the form of a story. So those different formats, you'll find, again, as you use them, certain ones maybe work better than others for your list. But you got to test to find out. And I still, even though you see maybe this one works best, I still like to vary them because if you overuse it, you'll see diminishing returns over time. So I hope that answers the question.
I mean, it does. And it also kind of, I mean, everything you said, you're talking about fear and everything. I think that you unpacked it Foundation 7. I mean, really and truly, I think you just kind of gave like a TED talk about that chapter in that past statement. Because I mean, think about it. I mean, fear it's a form of curiosity, right? I mean, you're trying to figure out, well, what I'm scared of it. What's going to happen, right? Like you said, health. Health is a curiosity. Like, I don't want to catch cancer. I don't want to catch heart attack. And it's kind of like you're curious to find out how not to.
Right.
So, I mean, that chapter is definitely, I think it's worth the price of the book just for that chapter, to say the least.
I appreciate that.
So, and it kind of like we're going reverse because we're kind of skipping around a little bit. But I think the question, the elephant in the room for everyone with emails, and emails are going out of style, this, that, and the third. I get to me frequency. I will think. Like the fact that chapter is there, and I know it was kind of one of those chapters you probably didn't know where to put it exactly, right? Like in the order of sequences, but it's a hell of an important chapter. So I want you to kind of talk about that and break down like that keyword of frequency.
Yeah, people do think emails going out of style or nobody reads emails anymore. You hear it all the time. Most of those people are trying to sell you something else. They want you to buy their social media thing or they had to blow up on Instagram. Please blow up on Instagram, do that. But don't neglect email because also you'll find that people who have big Instagram followings, the ones that are making the most money, are pushing people to email as well. So email is not going anywhere. It is has the highest return on investment of any marketing platform. The statistics keep coming that way. I'm not saying that because it benefits me. I'm saying it because that's what the statistics continually show. Instagram is cool, but at any time, you saw the other day, Instagram just goes down. Now what do?
Mm,
You have no control over that. And they can ban you. Facebook keeps interrupting me. I don't like what you said. Okay, I guess I'm suspended for 2 days.
mm,
Email doesn't really do that, as long as you're not spamming people, doing dangerous things like that. But I just got suspended for linking to a YouTube video. Uh, it's on YouTube, but I didn't say anything stupid in it. We were actually
mm,
talking about the book. Facebook didn't like it and they suspended me just for linking to it. Anyway, but email doesn't, you don't have the same uh,
mm,
potential to be blocked, shut down, suspended with email. So email is important and good. Uh, the other question is that people all the time tell me, or rather ask me, or they imply to me, I don't want to send too many emails because I don't want to harass people. I don't want to get unsubscribes.
mm,
First of all, unsubscribes are not a bad thing. You want people to go away if they don't want to hear from you.
mm,
That's not a problem, especially if you when you at the point where you're paying for paying for subscribers. I mean, paying for your email service, and you have 5,000 people. It costs more, so you want people around who are not going to engage with you.
mm,
Now, unsubscribes are they feel bad, but it's really just maintaining the top quality subscribers. You don't really want the low quality ones anyway. And most of the people who unsubscribe, they were never going to buy from you anyway.
mm,
So anyway, it's really so unsubscribes aren't a horrible thing that many people think they are. But also the data shows that people don't unsubscribe more when you email more. We just instinctively think if I send 5 emails versus 1 email per week, I'm going to have more unsubscribes. It doesn't really work that way. The data
mm,
shows unsubscribes go up when you email less. If you ever took a month off of sending emails and then you go back, you see people unsubscribe
mm,
because they're like, who is this dude? I don't even remember why I was on this list. Was I on this list? I don't remember signing up for this. And so unsubscribes, if you do more than one per day, you will get unsubscribed. That's what the data shows. It goes up if you send 3 a day. You can do that occasionally. You don't want to do it all often. And then it goes up again after 7 days. But between once per week and 7 times per week, the unsubscribe rate is the same. It's actually the same on a per email basis. So you still get a few more, but people don't become unhappy that you send more emails just because you send more emails. The problem is if you send bad emails.
mm,
So when it comes to frequency, here's my advice. It's a long way of getting to the answer of the question.
mm,
I recommend that you email at least once per week, up to 7 times a week, but only if you can maintain a high quality of email.
mm,
Don't just send emails to send them. You want to send as many emails as you can send that you're happy and proud of the quality of them, and you believe they're really providing value. So for some people, that's once a week, and for
mm,
some people, that's 3 times a week. For some people, really, that's once a week. Again, if you do it less than once a week, then people begin to forget why they care about you, and your
mm,
competitors creep in. Because when
mm,
someone gets on your email list, they're probably on your competitors list as well. So you really don't want to fade into the background by being too infrequent. So that's my answer. At least once a week, probably not more than once per day, except on like a deadline day. If you don't get in, you're gonna miss out. That's okay because you're really just telling people you're gonna miss out. I don't want you to miss out. If you really want to get in on this, here's your chance to get in. But that's an occasional thing. You don't want to do that regularly. And one other factor is probably depending on your industry a little bit. If
mm,
you're a plumber, don't send daily emails. You're probably not going to be relevant 7 days a week. You still could send out weekly emails with tips or advice or recommendations because you want to be high value. But then people probably don't want to hear from their plumber
mm,
every day of the week or their dentist. But for people like yourself, information providers, uh, coaches, marketers, financial people, health people, because I'm thinking about my health every day. I wake
mm,
up, I take my my supplements, I do my exercise, or I don't. I feel guilty about it. So I'm thinking about this every day. So if I hear from you every day helping me, that's good. I'm trying to build my podcast every day. So if I'm hearing from you helping me with my podcast, good. I want to hear from you.
mm,
So it's all about how frequently you can send good emails, and don't overstress yourself if it's only once a week. Somebody will say you have to send daily emails. Well, that's false. It's
mm.
false. If you're going to send bad emails, you'd rather not send them at all. So anyway, that's a long
Yeah.
answer.
No, I think it's a great answer. So I want to unpack something in that answer. I mean, obviously we're talking about the core content of that email, which I don't think we really kind of dive into in this book.
Correct.
But I want you to kind of just talk about it just a little bit to kind of understand because you're saying you could either email one great email per week or seven good emails per week, and it
Yes.
really comes down to the length of the content. So what is the average length of a good content? I mean, some readers they like long form blog style emails,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
some of them like quick, short, punchy, action based emails. And I
Yeah.
think a combination of both is great. But ideally, what have you seen as far as the highest conversions?
Yeah. And that depends also on what you're trying to accomplish. Some people are really driving people from email to
Mm,
YouTube, or they're driving people to uh, their podcast or whatever. So for me, uh, I think you should send content based. Now, lengthwise, I hear it all the time. Your email is too long. You read it though. They're just mad that they couldn't get all this good value in 30 seconds. But you
mm,
couldn't get all the good value in 30 seconds because it took this much time to explain everything you need to know and give it to you in a way that's valuable. You should be as succinct as you can be, but
mm,
sometimes you got to spend 400 words to do that. Um, so I think for me, uh, if your emails can be super short, if you're giving like quick tips, or if you're driving them to other content or to a sales piece, like it's time for you to buy the new Boss Uncaged hat. The email
mm,
doesn't need to be that long. It's just
mm,
cool hat. If you got a visual in there, here's a link, or here's a
mm,
testimonial, or whatever. It can be pretty quick. If you're trying to help somebody accomplish something in the body of the email, 250 words, you probably can't do much good in less than 200 words.
mm,
It's teasing, I want a good answer, a quality, in-depth answer. It's going to take you 200, 300 words. And I've seen emails up to 1,000 words and even more. Uh, as long as it's not just wordy for no reason, you're just building value. I'm showing you everything you want to know. One of the best emails I've gotten in the last 6 months was probably 1,000 words, but it
mm,
was breaking down everything I needed to know. It's particularly about writing copy. Oh, and from an expert, I want all of that. I want the email to be as long as it needs to be. And
mm,
and you're the same. If you're an expert, people want to hear what you have to say. They've signed up to
mm,
hear from you. So it could be between starting, like again, if you're linking to something else, if the primary point is to link to something else, you want an email to be maybe 150 words or less. And it can be
mm,
less than 100 words. It could be 20 words if it's really go look at this link. Now, I'll say this. I got an email from a very famous internet marketer. It said, Donnie, it's time. Don't you think? Find out more. Well, that's too short. I don't know what you're talking about.
mm,
You gave me nothing. The subject line was vague as well. I'm not clicking that. Maybe some people did. I don't recommend
mm,
that kind of blind email. But a lot of great emails, if you're pushing toward the click, are around 100 words,
mm,
80 to 120 words. You find that your click-through rate is highest in that range.
mm,
You've given enough information to get me curious and to indicate that there's value on the other side of the click, but you haven't given me enough information where I don't have to click. If I really want to know, I got to click. And so once you pass 150 words, maybe you begin to see a declining click-through rate. If your
mm.
primary purpose is to educate, it can be as long as it needs to, but you'll see 250 to 500 words is probably a sweet spot. And you can still link after that, but you can accomplish a lot of good in an email in terms of education or inspiration within 200 to 500 words. Um, so that's pretty much it. I think again, it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yep, yep. So that kind of leads me into, and I think probably like what we have time for is the last main topic. And to me, I think this is the real meat and potatoes of the book. And if anyone is thinking about like general psychology of an individual and the reasons why they open up emails and why emails convert and why emails still work today, going into the chapter of the human attention algorithm, I think and all the examples of the subject lines, pound for pound, again, I don't want to go over the details because I want people to buy the book because I think that is the secret sauce in this book, right? So I want you to kind of talk about and unpack like the definition of human attention algorithm.
I think that I should buy the domain before somebody else gets it. For me, uh, first of all, we know we're in the time where artificial intelligence is extremely popular, the hot topic, and more people are using it to enhance or accelerate their content production, and that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so there's algorithms at play, but for me, as I understand it, uh, humans have a algorithm as well, or they have algorithms as well as to decide what their attention goes to. We can't pay attention to everything. We just can't. You've seen the video where uh there's like it's like somebody's count the number of squares in this box, and it's in a basketball court, and there's a monkey in the background dancing or a gorilla in a suit,
Yeah.
and you don't see him. You don't see the monkey or the guy in the monkey suit because you're paying attention to what's over here. It's called inattentional blindness, and we
Mm-hmm.
have to do that because if you could pay attention to everything, your brain would be overwhelmed. We never accomplish anything. So we only pay attention. We really only pay attention to what we focus on, and the algorithms in our brain. I don't have the psychological or the scientific proof of how the algorithm breaks down, uh, but we had to decide. Our brain automatically decides what we pay attention to,
Mm-hmm.
and some of those things are beyond our control as marketers. Right, our biology really determines a lot. Right, if you're starving, even though you can override hunger too, but hunger gets attention by default because it's biological, and uh, and that's an important thing. We have our interest things. So there's biology. There's interest. So things that we really care about, uh, which includes safety, which is partially biology as well. But fear is in there. If you hear rustling in the bushes and you're in the forest, you you have to pay attention to that because it could be a mountain lion, it could be a hunter who's
Mm-hmm.
looking for weird targets. It could be anything. You don't know. You got to find out to protect yourself, defend yourself. So the biological things, the self-interest things are in there. Like so, also things that we're really passionate about. Again, if I see somebody talking about copywriting, I pay attention. I
Mm-hmm.
just that's what I'm interested in, what I'm passionate about, what I spend my time doing, thinking about, and or the Dave Chappelle thing. I gotta look.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan too. They get me every time. All the Michael Jordan clips, and then the computer algorithm knows he likes Michael Jordan clips. He likes Kobe Bryant clips. He likes Dave Chappelle clips, and I look every time. And now I'm watching Kyrie every time. I got to see how he cooks them. So our brain does that. It'll the same way that Facebook or out YouTube knows to serve you of certain kind of videos. Our brain knows I'm paying attention to those things that we have uh, personal interest in. So we're factoring through these things. I need to know if there's something biologically like a threat to my safety, or something attractive to if you smell macaroni and cheese and greens, nothing else is happening. I'm going in the I'm going in the kitchen and getting me some uh, things we're interested in, and then things that we have to do, we pay attention to as well. But so our brain's filtering through these things, and when we're creating subject lines, we can appeal to those that algorithm. We don't really want to talk about things people have to do unless we're a person who's in authority. The IRS sends you an email. I gotta open that
Mm-hmm.
because they're gonna say you have to pay this amount of money by this amount of time, or we're coming for you for your we're taking it all. You don't want that. But we're not in a place where we should be telling people what they have to do, and we actually we don't want to position ourselves where we're telling people what they have to do. We want to talk about what people are interested in.
Mm-hmm.
They're specifically interested in building their podcast. They're specifically interested in writing a book, or they're specifically interested in staying married for decades. They're specifically interested in moving to Amsterdam. How do I do that as an American who's been uh, not been exposed to that culture?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to look out for? What do I need to stay away from? What do I need to make sure that I do when I get there? So those are the things that we can talk about. And then also, again, the biology, we can't really affect their biological state because we're digitally we're on the other side of a computer screen. But we can, if you begin to talk about something that you can appeal to fear, there's if someone reads it, their brain can process it in a similar way to a threat that's in their space. So I guess you got to read the book. It's not a
Yeah.
super long section, but those are kind of the three layers of the attention algorithm, human attention algorithm. So again, it's a human algorithm, and it's about how we pay attention. So I put it that way to juxtapose it against large language model algorithms, which are important. But if you want to get people to open your email, you got to understand how the human mind works, and so that's what that's about.
I think it's interesting that you ended it about understanding how the human mind works, and if if I remember correctly, your mom, she studied American Sign Language at one time,
Correct. Man,
right?
that's
So,
correct.
so I want you to kind of think about that. I mean, obviously, in today's world, there's a lot of talk about emails and websites as far as being, compatible with the disabled.
Yeah.
So how does that then play into like email to a certain extent, being that, obviously you were raised in an environment to where that was something that you paid attention to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's first of all, it's for businesses of a certain size, like it's a requirement. If you don't have a
Mm,
compliant website, you're gonna get fines and all
mm,
kinds of things. So some people really need to pay attention to it. But just out of respect for accessibility, um, you want people to be able to experience, enjoy, consume your content. So when it comes to email, I'll say it like this because I haven't thought about this question. But for I think it's great to have multiple media. So obviously your email doesn't have sound, although someone can program their phone or their computer to read to them. Uh, but you want to have things that are easy to see. So paragraphs that are this long, it's not accessible for anybody.
mm,
You can't, you're not going to be able to do that. And if you have visual impairment or if you have ADHD, for example, uh, it can be difficult. It can be intimidating, and they may not read. And so I do this naturally, but I recommend it all the time. Shorter paragraphs are more easily accessible for visually impaired, but also just anybody who's looking at an email. It's harder to read, and there's proven it's harder to read super wide lines. It's like
mm.
I can't remember the number of characters. There's some study done after 90 characters. It's visually hard to read that. And so you want to have set your margins so it's more narrow. I can't think how many pixels that is. Um, and then also lengthwise. I like four lines in a paragraph at most. More of my paragraphs are 2 to 3 lines, just because it's easier to read. Images, high contrast images are helpful, but also having the alt text in there. Some of us skip that. But for visually impaired people, sometimes they can't make out what you got there. And so having alt text, which you have to go in there and click and add alt text, but you can describe the image so people can still understand, or they can see what you're trying to show them. But they can read about what you're trying to show them. So that it's a little way that you can help. We want to skip that because it's work, but it's not respecting some of your readers. Um, and then again, if you can, when possible, link to multiple media so people can consume in different ways. For some people it's easier to listen to things, and for some people it's easier to watch things like a video, and for some people they really want to read. So when you can, I like to link to multiple media. That's not just for accessibility either. It's just everyone consumes content in different ways. So when you can do those things, it adds accessibility, and also it deepens connection. I think if people can hear your voice, and people can read your words, and people can see your face in all these different modes, that helps deepen the relationship. That's an incomplete answer. I think that's the best answer I can give at this time about email, though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So going into closing, I mean, I think that this is not your first book, it's not your second book, it's not your third book, it's your fourth book. So I want you to kind of like, talk about like final thoughts about the book, and if you want to kind of drop any of the preset books that came before it and how they kind of work together in sequence, and which one should you read first, which one should you read second?
Okay. Secretly, I've written 5 books, but the first one is so bad. It was
Mm,
so bad that I refuse to acknowledge it. Actually, I wrote it, and then I wrote a second version of that with a co-author,
mm,
and then I sold him the rights to the book. I said, as long as you take my name off of it, you can do whatever you
mm,
want. Fascinatingly, he got a co-author to make the book even bigger, and then he did the same thing. He sold
mm,
it to his co-author. I don't know what the book looks like now. So my first acknowledged book it's called Stealth Selling,
mm,
Non-Pushy Persuasion for Professionals. The mouthful. And the idea was really how we can uh, sell, how we can promote our stuff in a way that it doesn't feel sleazy, high pressure, and people will actually appreciate the way that we present it. You probably the only place you can find that is on my website. I think it's
Mm,
$5. I'm not telling you to go buy it. It's from 2012 or something like
mm,
that. It's very old. And I don't even, again, I can't remember all the stuff that's in there, maybe outdated. If you want to buy, that's fine. Um, and I don't think it's available anywhere else. And I don't even know what the link is because I don't promote
mm,
it. But every once in a while, $5 comes in my PayPal. And oh yeah, I forgot I had that. I forgot I had that book. And I don't know how people find it. The second book started out as a free report. It's called How to Beat Goliath, Even If You Can't Kill Him Outright. It's a very long
mm,
title. I was playing around having fun. But that's really about just my thoughts on like initial thoughts on lead generation, carving out a niche, because most of us are not going to be Walmart or Amazon or
mm,
Apple, Tesla, any of these things. Uh, but you can carve out a space for yourself where you can really thrive. You can make as much money as you need to make to have your financial goals met, and you can enjoy your work. You can make an impact. So it really is about how to create a space where you're doing that. And really the focus on that was lead generation. Like it's kind of like what we talked about before, creating a personal brand that's
mm,
unique and specific and sets itself in juxtaposition against the Goliaths in your space, and then bring people onto your list that you can serve in that specific way. Pretty short book, actually. It's available on Amazon. It doesn't sell very well, which is fine.
mm,
It's totally fine. It's also, I think I wrote that in 2014 or something like that.
mm,
I co-wrote with my friend Conrad Dees a book called How to Write to Sell. And when I say co-wrote, I'm being somewhat generous to myself. He wrote much more than I did.
mm,
It's really about it's for non-writers. It's really focused on people who don't feel like they're writers. Because you can say to me, Donnie, you're a writer. This stuff all comes easy to you. Well, number one, it doesn't come easy, but I'm
mm,
this is what I love. This is what I do. So I work hard at it. But if you're a non-writer, how can you still write emails? How can you write sales letters? How can you write blog posts that are going to create the effect that you want or the impact that you want? And so the book really dives into getting to know your audience and then how to simple ways to construct messages that are going to be effective.
mm,
So I think that's actually a really good book, very useful, especially again, if you don't love writing, if you don't really like writing, but you know that you need to. We wrote
mm.
that before AI was really a an accessible tool that you could just do all your content with. I still suggest you don't just copy and paste what AI gives you. It's not really gonna be what you want.
Mm,
Uh, it's a start. So this book I think is good in understanding some of the specific things that you need to include in your messaging.
mm,
And it really goes back again to knowing who your audience is. If you know who your audience is, you can give better inputs, better prompts to the AI, so you get better output, which gets you even closer. So I think that's a pretty good book. And then Subject Line Science, I happen to have a copy here,
mm,
which is what we've been talking about today. I think it's a very good book. If you're doing email marketing, and I think you should do email marketing,
mm,
uh, it's really good to help you understand how to get people to open your emails for the right reasons in the right state of mind so that they'll take the right action and get the right results. So so
yeah.
there's that.
Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal book. I mean, I like the way the book is set up, and I look at it as just it's two large chapters with multiple subchapters. It's more so the foundational things
Yeah.
that you need to know, and then it's more so like learning the human algorithm and then applying like the examples that you
Yeah.
have in the second half of the book.
Yeah. And it's only about 100 pages.
Yeah.
So it's not super long. What does it say? 90. Oh, online is 92 pages. If you count the appendices, it's 92 pages in the
Yep. Yeah.
paperback. It's available on Kindle as well. Um, you'll get a ton of value from conversations like this, but I think
Mhm.
you get more meat on the bone when you pick up the book.
Yeah, I would say if someone is listening to this and they have the book, I would say listen to this because we kind of went in order, chapter by
Yeah,
chapter.
yeah.
So like listen to chapter by chapter and read chapter by chapter. I mean, it's almost like when you get to the audio, if you want, I would say put this as an extra include in that audio book if you would like.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I did it because I
Mm,
promised to do it. But I need to redo it because when I added the appendix, that's not in the
mm,
audio version. And I did it on this microphone in this office with traffic in the background. So I probably need to get a studio someplace, or at least a quiet room in the basement. and make a higher quality updated version. But you're right, and I appreciate that offer. That's really generous.
So just for the listener, just like that little bit of adding on this extra hour to his audiobook, just the secret of audiobooks, the longer the content, the higher the default premium of the book. But obviously you have to give value. So just
Yeah.
FYI, if your reading is an hour and 30 minutes and you add on an extra hour and 30 minutes, technically you're doubling your revenue just by doing that.
Wow. Well, all right.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Anytime, man. Well, I definitely appreciate you coming on the show again. I think this was definitely a hell of an insightful episode. I mean, it kind of email is still king. I mean, it's king, it's queen.
Yeah.
It's you're wearing purple for a reason. It's a
Yep.
legendary situation, right? So don't discredit email, especially if you're not using it right now.
That's
Test
right.
it first for yourself, and it kind of goes back to what we talked about indirectly. A/B testing in email is your best friend as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's absolutely right. And if nothing else, having multiple ways of being and staying in touch with your
Mm,
audience is good. You're on
mm,
Instagram, you're on YouTube, and you're on Facebook, and you're on
mm,
Twitter. Don't miss email. Like people, everybody looks at their email every day, right? They look at their Facebook, they look at their Instagram, they look at their email too. You might as well be there.
mm,
Just another way for you to stay in touch with your audience. And actually, you can repurpose the content, right? You don't have to create
mm.
different email or different content for the email than you do for Instagram. Like obviously, Instagram is more photo heavy,
Yeah.
but the same concepts you can repurpose across channels. So you're not tripling your effort. You're just adding a little bit extra effort to, triple your exposure. So, if nothing else, you want to be in as many places as your audience's eyeballs are as you can.
100%. 100%. I definitely agree with that.
And
Well, I
listen, I
definitely.
appreciate you having me on the show. It means a lot to me. Yeah, you're a great interviewer, and I always have a lot of fun. And you always make me think about things I didn't think about previously. So I appreciate you.
I think it's a two-way street. I mean, I think that's why when you have inner circles like this, I mean, obviously there's always a push and pull. Like
Yeah,
we both walk away with something from these
yeah,
conversations.
for sure.
So by all means, I definitely appreciate the copyright boss being back on the show again today, man. Best of luck
It's
to
a
you.
pleasure and an honor.
Great. SA Grant, over and out.